Hi everyone, and welcome to Learn with Sawgrass. I'm Rhonda, the Education Manager here at Sawgrass, and we come to you twice per week on our YouTube channel to help you learn all things Sawgrass. We're going to teach you about our inks, about our printers, about our software, about our service, and then we're going to hopefully give you some inspiration and some business tips as well. Everything you need to succeed with Sawgrass. Today is one of our recorded workshops. So I said we come to you twice per week. Once is going to be recorded, once is going to be live. We are typically live on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. And then this recording usually drops on Thursday or Friday of the same week. So today is one of our recorded sessions, and I want to dive into something that I think is extremely important. When we talk about your return on investment, you are buying this printer, you're investing in this system. And so we want to make sure that you're getting everything out of it that you can. And we want that return on investment to be high, and we want you to be able to pay off that printer really quickly. So one of the things that I think is very important when we talk about that is all about reducing waste. So what are the things you can do to make sure that when you print, you are getting the most out of everything? And that's the life of the printer. That's going to be the ink, making sure the ink lasts as long as possible, the paper that you use, and then just making sure that you don't have to do reprints. So I want to go through some ways today that I think we can help you reduce waste. So let's go ahead and jump right in. One great way that you can prevent waste and make the most out of your resources is ganging and nesting. So ganging and nesting is when you put multiple images on one page. Now, of course, you want to make sure that they're all going onto the same type of product, so the profile matches. But as long as you're doing that, go ahead, and of course you want to make sure you're doing them at roughly the same time. But as long as you're doing that, it's a really great way to make sure that you're taking advantage of all the real estate of that piece of paper. Now, one of the great things about the Sawgrass print utility is it does have great ganging and nesting features in there to make your life easier. So we are going to go ahead and we're going to start out by nesting. Now, here's how I remember the difference. If I am putting multiples of the same item on the page, that's called nesting. And the way I remember it is that birds of a feather flock together in a nest. So that's how I kind of remember that one, since these are all the same image. Now, this top part, your design files, this is where you can see your image. I'm going to go ahead and tell it that I want to put, let's say, 10 of these on the page. So let's say this is something tiny. This is a magnet. This is a keychain. You're noticing there is a large amount of space between these items, even though I haven't set my spacing yet. Normally, that's going to be because the canvas that the image was on was a larger size. So I'm going to go ahead and use this crop to image area, and it's going to remove that extra white. Now we can see our images. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to space this. I'm going to give these about a 1/2 inch between. Now that is adding it to both the left side of the image and to the bottom. And so you see it kind of space those out. So one of the things you can do to get more of something on the page is to check and see if landscape helps this out. Now it does in this case. I would be able to add a few more. So I'm going to go ahead. I've got that at 12. I don't think I can add a whole nother row. I'm going to try it though. Nope, I can't. So 12 is what's going to fit on the page. I probably could add a little bit more spacing there and still be okay. A lot of times when I'm doing smaller items, I will actually tape the items to the page. In this case, let's say this is going on to metal. I would probably go down and center this on page, and then that way I've got a good amount at the top and the bottom too. So you could do this, you could print 12 at a time. Now let's say it's a situation where I don't actually need 12 of this, I need 36 of this. Since this page is already set, I could go ahead and change the number of copies to 3, and it's going to print 3 pages of this. Instead of me coming up and putting in 36 and using all the computer resources to do that, I could just tell it that I wanted 3 pages. Now, you're not going to see a physical change, but it is going to know that it's doing 3 of that, and we would be all set and ready to go. Now, when we gang, we are putting items together that are not the same, but again, are going on the same product. So in this case, I could grab these 4. I'm going to open them. You notice if I open them all at the same time, they're going to go on the same page together. Same thing, I want to crop the image area to remove any white. You are going to see I could click on each file if I needed to make any changes to it. You can put different spacing between items. You also, if I needed 2 of this first one, but I only need 1 of the others, I could do that. Or if I come down here to this pencil and I needed 3 of that, I could always do that. I'm going to actually click it and let it stay this time. There we go. And then I have all of my items on the page. Now you can do all of the spacing together. And so I could space those out and make sure that I have enough space to cut them, to put them on whatever I'm putting them on. And then I go in and do my settings. Now, another thing I like to show here, just because it is so important, once I have everything set, so let's move this over to metal because it's going to be a metal keychain or magnet, and I hit print, this is now going to go into my recents folder. So if I go into my recents folder, this is going to be one of my jobs. I can just open that and I can print that again. It's got everything saved with it. So it's a great time saver and a great paper saver as well. So that's kind of the basics of ganging and nesting. One thing that I always focus on when I talk about reducing waste is making sure that you're using quality blanks. This is such an important part of the process, and a lot of people think that they're saving money by skimping on blanks, by getting blanks from wholesale sites instead of from dealers. And unfortunately, what you often end up with is having to redo products. That is a waste of the blank, that is a waste of the ink, that's a waste of the paper as well. And it's a waste of your time. So it actually isn't saving you anything if you're using blanks that are going to make you have to redo them. And that's just going to increase your cost instead of decreasing it. So one area I say never skimp is blanks. One example I'm going to use is the wind spinner. You know, a lot of it's going to come down to how high quality is the metal. How much is the metal going to bend when it's in the printer? Does the clip remove properly? If I'm buying something from a dealer, I know that it is made well for sublimation. If I'm buying from somewhere else, I can't always guarantee that. And I can't guarantee the service you're going to get returning it. This product is one of my top 5 list of offensive products. I'm going to be honest, to me, this is a very difficult one. And a lot of that is because it does bend in the press, and you often do get some gassing onto the backside. And then it's really hard to do it and then flip it and all of that stuff. So this is one of those products that's really difficult. So you of course need to make sure that you're choosing products that are easy to use. But the other part of this is choosing products that are going to stand up well in the press, that are, for sublimation purposes, have a really good, really even poly coating. So, you know, I brought in this kind of drinkware with the glitter. Now, I know that this comes from a dealer. I know that the glitter is done in such a way with the coating that I'm going to get a nice, even coating on it. And I'm going to get a good press every time. There are others that may not be made specifically for sublimation or by a company that does sublimation well, and you're not getting that consistency, and you may actually end up with some flaking or other things. So it's one of those things you need to think about. You know, we often talk about things like the coasters. You know, do they have a plastic coating on them or not? If someone's trying to save money, they may not have the plastic coating, or they may be packaged in such a way that they can get dust on them. They can get specks on them. And unfortunately, when that happens, it's either going to take you A, more time to clean them ahead of time, or B, it's going to mean that you're going to have a product that's going to have spots that you don't want when it presses, and you're going to get those little blue dots. So even something as simple as, are you buying from somewhere that properly packages your product, is going to be very important. And so that's why I always say, go with high quality products, go with products that you get from dealers, because we can always trust that quality. Now let's talk about things on the VersaFlex side. So we've never really given you any rules about fabric, other than watch out for fabrics that have a tendency to melt under heat, like silk, like some of the nylons, those things. But I do want to talk to you a little bit about fabric, and specifically cotton t-shirts, because you're going to see a very wide range of ways that shirts are dyed. And some of those dyes are impacted by the heat and will actually change color in the heat of the press. So if you are seeing that you're working with a specific brand, that you're seeing that issue, or you're seeing inconsistency, it may be as simple as check another brand, because all of them, we're learning, are dyed differently. And I know way more about dyed fabric than I ever thought I would after the last few weeks. So be careful with that. And that is one of those things that if you're consistently seeing that the fabric is changing color, you may want to try a different brand. We also say stay away from those heathered colors and those ash colors, because those typically are dyed in such a way that they will react with the heat. It's just something to be aware of. When we talk about wood, the important thing is the wood flat? I see it all the time. You get wood, and you know, something like this is a soft enough wood that it's going to help you compensate, and it's going to help kind of bend in the press a little bit to compensate for that. But if it were something like this, or even this, and they weren't even surfaces, I am going to have areas that don't get as good of consistency in the color as other areas of the same piece. This is also, as I'm feeling it, it does kind of have some wood fibers on there, some dust per se. So it may be a situation where you want to check that and make sure that it's clean before you press onto it. So even with our VersaFlex products, we do want to be careful to make sure that we have a flat, even surface that's going to do well with that. But you know, this is one of those things, you know, it's an easy area to try to save money, but it's also an area that can cost you money. So make sure that you are getting high quality blanks. I also, you know, when I talk about whether it's shirts, whether it's mugs, whatever it may be, if you have a mug that's chipped, keep it and use that to press onto to do samples. Same thing, always keep a few yards of 100% cotton if you're using VersaFlex, 100% polyester if you're doing true sublimation, just to have some test fabric so you're not wasting a shirt. Or like we do around here, you may see a shirt that has about 20 different test presses on it, or we just keep using the same piece of fabric. But when we talk about reducing waste, this is a big area to focus on. One of the best ways that you can prevent waste and help improve your return on investment is actually going to be built into the printer itself. All Sawgrass printers do self-maintenance cycles. So what that means is that as long as you leave your printer plugged into the wall and turned on, it is going to do a maintenance cycle every 10 to 12 hours that the printer is not actively being used. So what that means for you is that if you're not using the printer for the day or for a couple of days, it's going to continually run ink through the printer, so it's going to help prevent clogs. So just to walk through that, every 10 to 12 hours that the printer's not being used, it's going to run a fraction of 1% of ink through those lines. So the ink is an inkjet ink. It does need to keep moving. If it sits in one spot for too long, particles could start to collect. That makes big clumps of ink, and then those clumps of ink can clog the lines or they can clog the nozzles. And when that happens, then you're going to have a decrease in quality. You're either going to get lines in your print, or you are going to get a color that just doesn't look right. And that often leads to reprinting. That's a waste of ink. That's a waste of paper. And if you don't catch it before you press it, that's a waste of a blank as well. So it's not going to completely prevent clogging, but it does help decrease the chance of that. So whenever possible, your printer needs to be plugged into the wall and turned on as well so it can do those cycles. Now, can you unplug your printer to move it across a room? Of course. Could you take your printer with you to a trade show or to a crafting show? Of course you can. And when you do that, just unplug it right before you leave to pack it, and then plug it back in when you get back. Same thing, if you're in a situation where there's a storm coming or there's bad weather approaching, one of the last things you turn off, one of the first things you turn back on. And this is really going to help you. I see it all the time, people online who've turned their printer off for months on end and then are wanting to know if it's going to be okay when they turn it back on. The chances of it being okay if you don't use it for a couple of months are greater if you've left it on than if you've turned it off. So one of the best ways to help keep your printer running great, to help make sure everything working, is to leave it plugged in and turned on. Another little piece of this to remember is the expiration date on your inks. You do want to make sure that those dates are in date. You don't want to run expired ink through your printer. Running expired ink through the printer, same thing, more likely to clog. That, of course, is going to cause wasted paper and ink and possibly a blank if you got the print pressed before you realized it. So leave your printer turned on, leave your printer plugged in, and then, of course, make sure that your inks are in date are great ways to help prevent waste. So all of this is so important because it does impact your return on investment. And we really want you to get as much impact out of this as possible so that you are able to, say, print those 50 t-shirts and sell those 50 t-shirts and pay off that SG 500. Or if you're doing mugs, that you're able to do those 72 mugs and pay that off. So this ROI calculator, as you can see, is on the Sawgrass website, straight down on that first page, so easy to find and use. Okay, so that's it. That is Rhonda's tips, or some of Rhonda's tips, for helping you to reduce waste and improve your return on investment, your ROI with your Sawgrass printer. So just a few little easy things you can do to make sure that you're getting the most out of your system. If you do ever have any issues, please reach out to us at cure.sawgrassinc.com. And we here on the education team hope that we give you lots of resources to help you get the most out of your system. So please check those out. A lot of that is going to be our video content, which is right here on our YouTube channel. So check out those quick tip videos from Rhodes. Check out those workshops from me and the team as well, so that we can help you be successful. Now, once again, we do join you every Wednesday afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern live. Next week, that is going to be earlier in the week, so keep a lookout for that. And then we do drop these as well. You can also check out our podcast series. It is called Ink Differently, and you can find that on Amazon Music, Apple Music, and on Spotify. We're currently in a hiatus between seasons, but you're going to see a new episode dropping in just a couple of weeks. That's it for today. I hope you learned some stuff and you had a little bit of fun. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.